The forgotten legend. The crystalline corridors of Research Station Omega-7 hummed with the quiet energy of discovery. Dr. Zafara Vex pressed her four-fingered hand against the ancient stone tablet, her violet eyes scanning the mysterious symbols that had puzzled xenoarchaeologists for decades. The Altarian scientist's silver skin shimmered as she worked, her natural bioluminescence reflecting her excitement. "This can't be right," she whispered to herself, her translator device converting her melodic native language into Galactic standard. The symbols before her spoke of something impossible, something that challenged everything the Galactic Confederation believed about their history. Commander Thane Koros entered the laboratory with heavy footsteps, his massive draconian frame casting long shadows across the room. His reptilian features twisted into their usual expression of skepticism as he observed the scientist's work. "Still chasing fairy tales, Doctor?" Thane's deep voice rumbled through the chamber. His golden scales caught the laboratory's artificial light as he moved closer to examine her findings. "The Confederation Council grows tired of funding expeditions based on children's stories." Zephyr turned to face the commander, her excitement undimmed by his criticism. "These aren't stories. Thane, look at this." She gestured toward a series of holographic displays showing ancient star maps and technological schematics. "Every civilization we've studied mentions them. The Vorthan Empire called them the Silent Guardians. The Crystal Syndicate knew them as the Distant Watchers. Even your own draconian archives contain references to the third species." "Myths and legends," Thane replied dismissively, though his keen military mind couldn't help but analyze the data she presented. "Every culture creates stories to explain what they don't understand. These humans you're so fascinated with are nothing more than collective imagination." The laboratory door slid open with a soft hiss, and Professor Alex Quinn shuffled into the room. The ancient Centauri scholar's translucent blue skin seemed even paler than usual, and his multiple eyes darted nervously around the chamber. At over 400 years old, Alex was one of the few beings in the galaxy who remembered the old stories in their original form. "Professor Quinn," Zephyra greeted warmly. "Perfect timing. I was just showing Commander Koros the latest findings about the human civilization." Alex's tentacle-like appendages trembled slightly. "Dr. Vex, perhaps some knowledge is better left buried. The old texts speak of humans with good reason, and none of those reasons suggest we should seek them out." "What do you mean?" Zafira pressed, her scientific curiosity overriding the professor's obvious discomfort. The elderly Centauri moved to a secure terminal and input a complex access code. Ancient files, sealed for centuries, appeared on the display. "These are the Forbidden Archives," he said quietly. "Records that the Council ordered classified long before any of us were born." The holographic display showed star charts dating back thousands of years, with one region clearly marked as quarantined. The area encompassed dozens of solar systems, all marked with warning symbols in multiple ancient languages. "The Terran Exclusion Zone," Alex continued, his voice barely above a whisper. "For 3 millennia, every spacefaring civilization has agreed to avoid this region. We told ourselves it was due to dangerous spatial anomalies, but the truth is far more complex." Commander Koros stepped forward, his military training asserting itself. "Are you suggesting there's actually something in that region? Some threat we've been avoiding?" "Not a threat," Alex replied, his multiple eyes focusing on different displays simultaneously. "An agreement. The humans didn't disappear, Commander. They chose isolation. The last recorded contact speaks of a species that had grown weary of galactic conflicts. They retreated to their home systems and sealed themselves away from the rest of the galaxy." Zephyra's bioluminescence intensified as the implications hit her. "But why? What could drive an entire species to self-imposed exile?" The professor's tentacles curled inward, a sign of deep distress among his people. "According to these records, humans possessed capabilities that made other species uncomfortable. They adapted to any environment, bonded with creatures that should have been their natural enemies, and showed a disturbing tendency to survive situations that would kill anyone else. The galactic community of that time feared them enough to let them leave." Koros mused, his tactical mind processing the information. And then we convinced ourselves they never existed in the first place. It was easier, Alex admitted. Safer to believe in myths than to acknowledge we might have driven away the most resilient species the galaxy had ever known. Suddenly, the station's emergency alarms began blaring. The trio rushed to the main observation deck, where the duty officer, a nervous Zephyrian named Clix, was frantically working at multiple consoles. Officer Clix report, Commander Koros barked. Sir, we're detecting massive energy signatures approaching from the Terran exclusion zone. Clix's crystalline form flickered with agitation. The readings don't match any known propulsion systems. The objects are massive, and they're moving at impossible speeds. On the main view screen, space itself seemed to ripple and tear. Reality twisted as something enormous pushed through dimensions that shouldn't exist. The fabric of space-time parted like curtains, revealing sleek vessels that defied conventional design principles. How many ships? Koros demanded, his military instincts taking over. I can't get an accurate count, sir. The energy interference is too great. But based on the displacement readings, we're looking at a fleet of significant size. Dr. Vex stared in wonder at the emerging vessels. They were beautiful and terrifying in equal measure, their hulls seeming to shift between metallic surfaces in something that looked almost organic. Streams of data flowed across her scientific instruments as they tried to analyze the impossible technology before them. Professor, she whispered, are these humans? Alex confirmed, his voice filled with awe and terror. After 3,000 years of silence, they've returned. The largest vessel, easily the size of a small moon, moved with graceful precision to position itself near the research station. Its hull bore markings that the translation computers couldn't interpret, symbols that seemed to shift and change even as they watched. Incoming transmission, Clix announced, his voice cracking with nervousness. Put it through, Koros ordered. The view screen filled with an image that made everyone in the room fall silent. The being looking back at them was exactly as the ancient texts described. Bilateral symmetry, forward-facing eyes that spoke of a predator species, and an unsettling expression that managed to convey both friendliness and barely contained power. Greetings, the human said, speaking in perfect galactic standard despite her species' supposed isolation. This is Captain Nora Blackwood of the Terran Expeditionary Fleet. We've been monitoring galactic communications and decided it's time to rejoin the cosmic community. Captain Blackwood appeared to be middle-aged by human standards, with short dark hair streaked with gray and eyes that held depths of experience. Her uniform was unlike anything in the galactic database, combining advanced materials with practical design. We know our return might come as a shock, she continued with what humans apparently called a smile. Most of you probably thought we were just stories your grandparents told. We're very real and we're here to talk. Commander Koros found his voice first. Captain Blackwood, this is Commander Thane Koros of the Galactic Confederation Defense Force. Your arrival has certainly surprised us. We had no idea your species still existed. The human's expression showed what appeared to be amusement. Oh, we've been very much alive, Commander. We've just been busy. 3,000 years gives you time to accomplish quite a lot. We've explored regions of space you've never dreamed of, made contact with species from other galaxies, and developed technologies that, well, let's just say we've kept ourselves occupied. Dr. Vex stepped forward, her scientific excitement overcoming her shock. Captain, I'm Dr. Zephyra Vex, a xenoarchaeologist. I've spent years studying the remains of your ancient civilization. Could you tell us why your people chose isolation? Captain Blackwood's expression grew more serious. Dr. Vex, our ancestors left because they believed the galaxy wasn't ready for what humanity could become. We needed time to mature as a species, to learn control, to become worthy of the power we possessed. The isolation wasn't punishment, it was preparation. Preparation for what? Professor Quinn asked, his ancient voice trembling. For this moment, Blackwood replied. The galaxy faces challenges that require cooperation between all species. We've been waiting for the right time to offer our help. Our long-range sensors have detected threats that none of your current civilizations are equipped to handle alone. The implications of her words sent chills through everyone present. If the humans, with their legendary resilience and apparent technological advances, were concerned about galactic threats, what did that mean for the rest of them? What kind of threats? Koros demanded, his military training asserting itself. That's a conversation for the full Galactic Council, Blackwood said diplomatically. But I will say this. Humanity learned long ago that the universe is far larger and more dangerous than any single species can handle alone. That's why we're here, not as conquerors or overlords, but as partners. As if to emphasize her point, dozens more human vessels emerged from their dimensional rifts, each one a testament to 3 millennia of technological advancement. The fleet arranged itself in a clearly non-threatening formation, though their mere presence radiated power that made the station's most advanced defenses seem primitive by comparison. We'll be sending a delegation to the Confederation capital within the week, Captain Blackwood continued. We have much to discuss and even more to share. The galaxy is about to become a much more interesting place. The transmission ended, leaving the observation deck in stunned silence. Outside the viewports, the human fleet continued its patient vigil, waiting for a galaxy that had forgotten they existed to remember why they had once been legends. Dr. Vex was the first to speak, her voice filled with wonder. They're real. After all these years of studying fragments and ruins, they're actually real. Professor Quinn nodded slowly, his multiple eyes tracking the movements of the human vessels. The legends were true, but they were also incomplete. The humans who left were one thing. The ones who have returned. He trailed off, unable to finish the thought. Commander Koros straightened his massive frame, his military mind already working on the implications. We need to contact the Confederation Council immediately. This changes everything. As the research station's communications array sent urgent messages across the galaxy, word began to spread that the greatest myth in galactic history had just proven itself to be the most important truth they had ever ignored. The humans had returned, and nothing would ever be the same. The Awakening, the Confederation Council chamber, had never hosted such a diverse gathering. Representatives from 47 different species filled the circular amphitheater, their various forms of communication creating a symphony of sounds, lights, and biochemical signals that the universal translators struggled to process. At the center of it all sat the human delegation, calm and composed despite being the focus of intense scrutiny from beings who had thought them mythical just days ago. Admiral Marcus Steele stood to address the assembly, his presence commanding immediate attention. Unlike Captain Blackwood's diplomatic demeanor, the Admiral carried himself with the unmistakable bearing of someone who had seen combat across multiple galaxies. His dark skin bore the subtle scars of old conflicts, and his gray eyes held the weight of decisions that had shaped the fate of entire worlds. Honored representatives, he began, his voice carrying easily through the vast chamber despite using no amplification technology. I am Admiral Marcus Steele, Supreme Commander of the Human Expeditionary Force. 3,000 years ago, our ancestors made the difficult decision to withdraw from galactic society. Today, we return not as the species you remember from your histories, but as something new. Council Speaker Vorthak, an ancient Nexilian whose crystalline form had witnessed centuries of galactic politics, leaned forward on her dais. Admiral Steele, forgive our skepticism. The human species was thought extinct for millennia. How do we know you are who you claim to be? Dr. Elena Vasquez, the human delegation's chief xenobiologist, activated a holographic display that filled the center of the chamber. The projection showed comparative genetic analyses, technological signatures, and cultural artifacts that clearly linked the newcomers to the ancient human civilization. Speaker Vorthak, our genetic markers are consistent with archived samples from pre-isolation human settlements, Dr. Vasquez explained, her scientific training evident in her methodical presentation. More importantly, We can provide information about locations and events that were never recorded in your histories because only humans witnessed them. She gestured, and the display shifted to show star charts of regions beyond the current galactic frontier. These are the systems we've explored during our isolation. 14 different galaxies, contact with 43 non-terrestrial species unknown to the Confederation, and discoveries that have fundamentally changed our understanding of the universe. Counselor Drex of the Hegemony Worlds, a militant species, known for their aggressive expansion policies, slammed a clawed appendage against his speaking platform. Pretty displays prove nothing. If humans were so advanced, why didn't you prevent the Void War that claimed billions of lives? Why abandon the galaxy when you could have helped? The chamber fell silent as General Kai Nakamura rose from his seat. The human military commander's presence was different from the admiral's, carrying an edge that made several species' survival instincts activate. His uniform bore no decorations, but the way he moved suggested someone comfortable with violence on a scale that most civilized beings couldn't comprehend. "Counselor Drex," General Nakamura said quietly, his voice carrying to every corner of the chamber. "We didn't abandon anyone. We were asked to leave." The general activated his own display, showing historical records that many in the chamber had never seen. These are archived communications from the period before human isolation. Your predecessors feared what they called our unnatural adaptability and disturbing resilience. They were uncomfortable with a species that could thrive in environments that killed others, that formed bonds with creatures considered too dangerous for civilization, and that consistently survived situations that should have been fatal. The display showed images of humans in impossible situations, surviving in the vacuum of space long enough for rescue, adapting to toxic atmospheres that would kill other species within minutes, and forming partnerships with creatures that other civilizations classified as irredeemably hostile. The Galactic Council of that era made a choice, Nakamura continued. They could either accept humanity as equals, with all the discomfort that brought, or they could encourage us to find our own path. We chose to respect their wishes, Ambassador. Lyra Thorne, the human diplomatic representative, stood gracefully. Her appearance was deliberately chosen to be non-threatening, average height, warm features, and clothing that suggested peaceful intentions. But her eyes held the same depth as her military colleagues, hinting at experiences that spanned multiple lifetimes. "What General Nakamura hasn't mentioned," Ambassador Thorne said softly, "is that we spent those 3,000 years learning why other species found us so unsettling. We discovered that human evolution had taken a unique path, one that gave us capabilities that seemed almost supernatural to beings who developed differently." She gestured and new images appeared. Humans working alongside creatures that looked like living nightmares, walking unprotected on worlds where the very air was caustic poison, and rebuilding after catastrophes that would have ended other civilizations. "We don't die easily," she admitted. "Our bodies repair damage that would be fatal to most species. We form emotional bonds with creatures that logic says we should fear. We adapt to hostile environments not by changing our technology, but by changing ourselves. To others, these traits appeared threatening. To us, they were simply how we survived." Counselor Yix of the Peaceful Alliance, a species known for their diplomatic solutions to conflict, spoke up. "If you acknowledge that your presence made others uncomfortable, why return now? What has changed?" Admiral Steele stepped forward again, his expression growing grave. "What's changed, Counselor Yix, is that the universe has become more dangerous than any single species can handle alone. During our isolation, we've encountered threats that make the old conflicts look like minor disagreements." The holographic display shifted to show images that made several council members recoil in horror. Vast ships that seemed to be made of living shadow, weapons that could unravel the atomic structure of entire planets, and beings that existed partially outside normal space-time. "The Devourers," Admiral Steele continued, "a species that consumes, not just matter and energy, but the very concept of existence itself, the reality storms that can erase entire solar systems from history. The Infinite Swarm, a hive mind that has already consumed 3 galaxies in the Andromeda cluster. The chamber erupted in alarmed communications as the representatives processed this information. Speaker Vorthak called for order, her crystalline form flickering with agitation. "Are you saying these threats are approaching our galaxy?" she demanded. "They're already here," Dr. Vasquez said quietly, causing another wave of panic. "Our long-range sensors have detected reality storm signatures in the outer rim, devourer scouts in 7 different systems, and swarm infiltration attempts in at least 12 worlds." General Nakamura's expression hardened. "The galaxy has perhaps 50 years before the first major assault. Individual species, no matter how advanced, cannot survive what's coming. But together, with human adaptive capabilities and the technological achievements of the Confederation, we might have a chance." Counselor Drek stood again, his aggressive posture even more pronounced. "And what guarantee do we have that humans won't simply take over once we're dependent on your protection? How do we know this isn't an elaborate conquest scheme?" Ambassador Thorne smiled, an expression that somehow managed to be both gentle and absolutely terrifying. "Counselor Drex, if humans wanted to conquer the galaxy, we would have done it 3,000 years ago. We've had the technology to sterilize every inhabited world for over 2 millennia. We've developed weapons that could crack planets like eggs and defenses that could stop anything your current militaries could deploy." She paused, letting the implications sink in. "But conquest was never our goal. Survival is. Not just for humanity, but for all sentient life. The threats coming for this galaxy don't distinguish between species, ideology, or technology level. They consume everything." Dr. Vasquez activated another display showing technical specifications that made the assembled scientists gasp in recognition. "We're prepared to share defensive technologies immediately, medical advances that could double the lifespan of most species, and energy sources that could power your civilizations for millions of years. In exchange, we ask for your cooperation in preparing the galaxy's defenses." The offer was staggering. Technologies that represented centuries of advancement, freely given to species that had spent millennia believing humans were fictional. The chamber buzzed with heated discussions as representatives tried to process the implications. Speaker Vorthak called for a formal recess, during which the human delegation waited patiently while the various species caucused frantically. When the session resumed, the atmosphere had changed dramatically. "Admiral Steele," Speaker Vorthak announced, "the Confederation Council has reached a preliminary decision. We accept your offer of alliance, with the understanding that this partnership will be between equals, not protectors and protected." Admiral Steele nodded respectfully. "That's exactly what we hope to hear, Speaker. Humans learned long ago that the strongest civilizations are built on mutual respect and shared purpose." General Nakamura stepped forward. "Our military advisors are prepared to begin joint training exercises immediately. Fair warning, human combat doctrine will seem unconventional to species that prefer safe, logical approaches to warfare. We fight dirty, take risks that seem suicidal, and have a disturbing tendency to win through sheer stubbornness." Ambassador Thorne added, "Our diplomatic corps will work with your foreign ministries to establish protocols for the expanded galactic community. We've made contact with several species beyond your current borders who will need to be included in the defense preparations." Dr. Vasquez activated one final display. "Most importantly, we'll be establishing joint research stations throughout the galaxy. The coming threats require solutions that no single species could develop alone. Human adaptability, Nixilian logic, draconian tactical thinking, Altarian scientific method, and the unique capabilities of every member species will all be necessary." As the session concluded, the human fleet in orbit began deploying construction platforms and manufacturing stations. Within hours, the galaxy's industrial capacity was expanded by orders of magnitude, as human technology seamlessly integrated with existing infrastructure. The transformation had begun. Species that had been separated by ancient prejudices and forgotten fears now worked side by side with beings they had thought were myths. Human engineers worked alongside Zephyrian artists to create defensive installations that were both functional and beautiful. Draconian tacticians learned from human strategic thinking that treated impossible odds as merely challenging puzzles. Dr. Zephyra Vex, monitoring the integration process from Research Station Omega-7, marveled at how quickly the galaxy was adapting to its new reality. The humans had returned not as conquerors or saviors, but as partners in a struggle that would define the fate of all sentient life. "Professor Quinn," she called to her elderly colleague, "were the ancient texts right about human capabilities?" The old Centauri scholar watched through the observation ports as human ships worked alongside Confederation vessels, their crews already forming the bonds that would be crucial to the galaxy's survival. "The texts were right about everything, Dr. Vex," he replied softly. "But they missed the most important truth of all. Humans aren't dangerous because they're different. They're invaluable because they refuse to give up, no matter how impossible the odds become." As the first joint patrol departed for the Outer Rim, carrying crews from a dozen different species under human command, the galaxy began to understand what the legends had really been trying to tell them. Humans weren't myths that had come to life. They were the answer to threats that no myth could have prepared them for. The awakening had begun, and with it, the galaxy's best hope for survival against the darkness approaching from beyond the stars.